All right, here we are with Reverend Arlene. Arlene, thank you for coming on.
Hello,
I appreciate
hello.
you.
Feel free to call me Rev.
Rev,
Yes.
that's perfect. This is kind of fun for me. Taryn, kind of put this out there for you to come on, and I immediately was like, oh yeah, because you and I really don't know each other that well.
Right.
But you're really close and friends with a lot of the women in the program that I've known for a really long time, that I have close relationships with and
Yes.
respect. And I've seen you do a service before, and it was just really neat for me to get the opportunity to have you on. Purpose of South Coast Chronicles is to just kind of learn about people that are involved with the recovery community or in recovery themselves, and you're obviously one of those that's heavily involved in the recovery community, and just want to know your story and how you got here. So welcome on.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, it's an honor to be here. And so I'm in absolute gratitude.
Thank you.
Just grateful that I get to be here and I get to I get to do what I do,
Right.
which is to inspire humanity and
Right.
to inspire individuals by understanding that there's a power greater than themselves and that it's not against them, it's for them.
Absolutely.
You know, that life is for you, not against you.
Absolutely.
And that you're needed in this thing called life. You're necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about it. I want to know your whole journey. So
Oh,
tell me a little bit about
wait, where are we beginning?
Where in the very beginning? Where'd you grow up? Where were you born?
Oh my goodness. No, you're kidding. Are
I'm
you
not
serious?
kidding. I'm totally serious.
Wow. I mean, okay, let me laser this as much as I can.
Okay.
I'm originally from Jamaica. I was born in Montego Bay,
Okay.
St. James, Jamaica.
Wow.
And my family migrated to America in the 1960s.
Okay.
And then New York first, and
Okay.
then Chicago. Family was like, look, Chicago's great.
Yeah.
You can make a living here. You can buy your own property here. So Chicago was the next place to land.
Okay.
And then I went back to Jamaica, and I was there till I was about 5.
Okay.
And then came back to America and grew up in Chicago.
Okay.
But over the years, Chicago, high school, fashion design was my major.
Nice.
You know, art of beauty was my thing. Worked in
Nice.
cosmetics, makeup artist for like 27 years.
Yeah.
And they actually moved me here to California from Boston. So I went Chicago, got married, moved to Cleveland, moved to Boston, and got divorced in Boston. 10 years later, landed in California.
Nice.
So yeah, it's
So Chicago
Yeah.
at 5 with your family, and you're
Chi-town.
So were your parents very spiritual? Did you grow up in a spiritual family?
It's very interesting. My mother never came to America. She never wanted to live here.
Okay.
She didn't, and she was young. She was 18 when she had me.
Oh wow.
So I came to America with my father's family.
Okay.
My mother literally was like, look, I'm 18. I need help. Here you go. Gave me to my grandmother and my father to raise me.
Okay.
And I grew up in this robust family.
Right.
Because all of them slowly migrated to Chicago. So we end up owning the building we live in. It's like a 3-story building, and it's all family.
Right.
So I grew up in a lot of family love. My middle name is Cecilia. So I was
Okay.
actually Catholic. My mother was Catholic, and she named me after Saint Cecilia.
Oh wow.
So it's Reverend Arlene Cecilia Hylton,
Love it.
which is where I am on Facebook.
Yeah.
But so I remember going to Catholic church, but they didn't go. They sent me with the neighbor.
Okay.
My grandmother was Church of England.
Okay.
And then when I went through high school and I was able to drive, I would take my grandfather to church. And his community was called St. Andrew, but it wasn't Catholic. It was a Baptist minister who was actually a funeral home owner who decided to become a minister.
Okay.
A.R. Leak Funeral Home, and I would take my grandpa to church on Sundays. That's
At the
only-
funeral home?
At the church they
Okay,
bought.
at
So
the
the
church,
funeral
okay.
home owner bought a church
Okay.
called St. Andrews, and he
Got
kept
it.
it the same name.
Got it.
So I would go, and I had no clue what they were talking about.
Right.
But I was busy. I was active. I was an usher.
Right.
I'd be with my grandpa every Sunday. And then one day I was working at Marshall Field, Chicago. Marshall Field doesn't even exist anymore.
I remember Marshall Fields.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Macy's might have bought them out.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm there, and there's a woman there, and she's like making all this money, like $800 in a day, and I'm looking at her like, there's no customers here. How are you making all this money? She said, I study Ernest Holmes. And I go, well, who's this Ernest Holmes? And so I find out about Science of Mind, which is now called, there's a name for it now, Centers for Spiritual Living. And I started going to this water tower place and taking this class. And that's when my spiritual awareness started opening up. And what's interesting is Oprah Winfrey lived on the top floor, and I kept going, am I going to see Oprah one day?
You want to see her walk out of there,
Yeah,
right?
I wanted to see her.
Yeah.
But I took this class, and it just opened me up to, understanding that, okay, there is religion, but there's also more. We're not limited to
Right.
what religion is. What is the most important thing in understanding is that there's no mistakes in creation, and that we're all needed.
Yeah.
And even though you may be dealing with addiction, that's not all that you are.
Yeah.
So that came later, but
Right.
I just recently had an awareness. And that was my uncle was sent up from Jamaica, the last relative that still lived in Jamaica. I was around 14 years old. We get a knock on the door. I'm home alone, and it's a cab driver, and he goes, look, this guy's drunk. I need you to help me bring him in. I bring him in, and I remember I'd never seen anyone drunk like that. And I remember saying to myself, what would make someone drink to the point of not even being able to walk? That was like an internal question. And then the answer came back, and I remember hearing, oh, he's just seeking God.
Right.
I'm 13 years old.
Yeah.
I have this epiphany, and then it's gone, and I'm living my life doing stuff.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, years later, I end up working at Safe Harbor.
Right.
You know what I
right.
mean? It's
Yeah.
like that one moment in my life, I believe,
Right.
was the catalyst to ending up working in a place. I went to a women's retreat.
Right.
Velvet was there. She saw me there, and she comes up to me and says, God told me you're the one. And I was
Yeah.
like, this little Italian lady, who is she?
Yeah.
And I was living in a valley. She said, just come and interview. And I was like, look, I'm going to Jamaica. I'm going to go visit my mother. 20 days later, I get back to America.
Yeah.
She's got a message to me on Facebook
Yeah.
in Messenger. I didn't even know what Messenger was.
Right.
I just happened to hit a button.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Velvet. I met you at the women's
Yeah.
retreat. Ba, 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 ba.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to go interview.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
told my former husband, hey, I'm going to go interview. Where's the job? Orange County. What?
Right.
And for the first few years of working at Safe Harbor, I was driving from the valley to Orange County.
How many years ago was that?
500 miles a week.
Oh, wow. That was how many years ago?
That was 2010.
Yeah.
I took the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to back up a little bit because I want to get to that story with Velvet. But
Yeah.
So you grow up in basically a Christian kind of like
Yeah.
upbringing. Like I mean, I can relate to that. I remember being, I grew up in East Texas, and there's a church on every corner, and everybody there is. You're really like you identify almost as your section of Christianity or whatever they call that. Like we were Presbyterian, and the neighbors, they were Church of Christ, and
Oh, wow.
the ones down the street were and so in the South, that's kind of how it is. And I just remember listening to these guys, and I just remember you go to church, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, and
Yeah. Well,
sing
that
the
was the
hymns
Catholic
and-
church for me.
And then I remember having to go to some Baptist stuff with my uncles, and that was kind of scary because they would talk a lot about hell and where you're
Right,
going
right.
if you don't get it right, and that kind of stuff. And so you grew up in like getting Christianity, but you at 13 you felt that there was,
I was like,
you felt it.
well, you want to know the other thing that happened around
Yeah.
that age is I remember asking myself the question, how is it I can hear myself talking, but my mouth isn't moving?
Right.
That was like,
Yeah. Right.
it's interesting, the questions. That's why I work with teenagers. I have a teen program. I've been in it for 22 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Working with teenagers. But those questions, right? What would make someone do this? Oh,
Right.
they're seeking God.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. Like, how is it I can hear myself talk and my mouth isn't moving?
Right.
These are the questions that kind of open me up to,
Yeah.
get to where I am
Right.
today.
And so
Yeah.
you were pretty open. You met this lady at your work.
Yeah.
Then you went to this class. Tell me about that, and what was that like, and what did you learn in there?
So
that
the
really-
name of the book was Science of Mind.
Okay.
His name is Ernest Holmes, and there's old videos of him on YouTube, and he was talking about God within, that there's a power and a presence that is within us. And I was like, what? He was saying the power of thinking, that our thoughts create. All the stuff people are now talking about, I was learning that at 18 years old.
Right.
And so I was like, wow, thoughts create, how we think and how we feel creates. So it was just this unfolding of no longer looking outside, looking for a God, understanding I'm here to reveal the good of this creator, that I'm here to serve humanity, that, and every creative part of me is God. It is the creator, And so I took these classes and it just opened me up. And after that, I just kept rolling with it. I ended up with Unity. I ended up with this community called Johnny Coleman, which was Universal Foundation for Better Living in Chicago.
Okay. What's Unity? It's for
Unity is Christian based and it's metaphysical.
Okay.
So I was with Unity when I moved to Boston. I mean, but I stayed in this metaphysical circle. I've always been in, after learning about Ernest Holmes, I just stayed in metaphysics.
Right.
And then people are talking about manifestation. I'm like, y'all, it's not just manifesting. It's not just what you think. It's what you think and what you feel that creates.
Right.
And so, yeah, I've been studying this stuff ever since, and I get to work with individuals and remind them that everything they've been looking for out there is actually within them.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're 18, and then you start getting into
I
these
start
groups.
taking these classes.
And so when did you become a reverend? When did you go from Arlene to Reverend Arlene?
That was a journey. So I got married, moved to Cleveland. I got married at 22. He says 23. So anyway, 22, moved to Cleveland, found a Johnny Coleman, who's a woman actually, a Johnny Coleman community there, was there, moved to Boston, went to Unity there in Boston. And then when I moved here, my former husband told me about where he was. And I was like, oh, he said, well, where do you want to go? I said, look, I want people of all backgrounds, all cultures, all, I don't care what race they are. I want people of all races together. And he said, oh, that's Agape. And I was like, what? He said, yeah, Agape International Spiritual Center. I go, what is that? He goes, that's where I go. I go, look, what I'm talking about is a dream, man. That doesn't exist. 2021, I go to Agape, and I've been there ever since, which has opened me up to so much.
Yeah.
And I believe that's been the catalyst to this part of my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's back up and talk about your safe harbor story, because I know this, and Velvet told me that story, and it's just it's really neat how that worked out. So
well, the fact that I'm still
you guys were
there
at a
is
retreat.
amazing.
She was at a retreat.
Okay, so every year we would have a women's retreat, and every year I did the design for it. This particular year, though, they said, we want you to pray, and I was like, oh well, because I'm used to draping fabric, climbing up ladders, doing all this design work.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, we want you to pray. And I said, okay. So I get up, I do the prayer. Velvet walks up to me and said, I've been looking for a spiritual director of my treatment center, and God told me you're the one. And I was like, the one for what? What's a treatment center?
Yeah. You didn't even know what it was.
I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
And she told me, I said, wait a minute. I said, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I said, I never did it because I was scared. So how am I going to do this?
Right.
So the question comes through, how am I? Who am I to do this? I leave, I come back, I get the approach on my page, and then I said, okay, God, now, if I'm supposed to do this, like, how am I going to help people in addiction? And I'm not even dealing with addiction, because I got drunk once and hated it. So I never did it again.
Yeah.
I was like, who does this? Know? But part of me knew that if I were to keep doing it, I could become addicted. So I was like, this isn't for me.
Right.
And then, so I said, well, who am I to do this? And then, so 2 answers came back in my prayers. One was, who are you not to? And the second answer was, you are not there for their addiction. You're there for their divinity. and I took the job. And
Love
my
it.
friends thought I was crazy. I was driving 112 miles a day.
So you were coming from where? L.A.?
I was coming from the Valley.
Oh, the
I lived in
Valley.
Canoga Park.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
Velvet told me the story, and she said she had her eyes closed and didn't even know who was praying.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't know
And
that
God
part.
told her you were the one
Yeah.
while she was hearing you pray.
Isn't that wild?
And then she opens her eyes and walked up to you. So,
Well, let
yeah.
me tell you something
Yeah.
else that's interesting. So, 2010, I said yes, right? I took this position. I started working on March 15th, which is Velvet's birthday. So I always tell her, I was your birthday gift, right?
you go.
And then March 18th is my birthday.
Yeah.
And so I end up there. It's her birthday. I start this. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And everything that I needed to know came to me. Like, she knew who I was before I knew who I was.
Right.
And, excuse me. And so the work that I do today is that I've created processes. I run groups. I do one-on-one sessions. I mean, it expanded me in such a way that, you know, I can't tell you. Today, I'm getting people who are 12 years, 11 years, 10 years sober who are still in touch with me.
Sure.
Now women are getting married and they're like, hey, I'm getting married and you're the only one that could. I'm doing weddings in Aspen or I was just in Steamboat, Colorado.
Oh, wow.
You know,
It's pretty.
Christenings are about to happen, you know.
Love it.
It's just like not in the plan,
Yeah.
but when you open up, I got expanded.
Love it.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I always pay homage to Velvet.
Sure.
And even though we don't see each other anymore, I don't
Yeah.
see her very often, I pay homage to her because I believe that she is a genius.
Yeah.
And I would call her that and she'd be like,
Yeah.
but she is a genius, and
Yeah.
she knew and followed her intuitive self. And she's done that over and over and over again
Right.
with people.
So tell me what that was like. You had never been around drug addicts very much, didn't know that world, didn't know the sobriety culture, and you walk in on day one, and it was an all women's place then.
Yeah, then
what
it was.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, let me just say this. As a metaphysician, metaphysics, you see beyond appearance.
Right.
So my work was not to see you as just a ... to know that, yes, in the human condition, you are an addict, but in spirit, there's still divinity in you,
Right.
There's still the pure self. And once as I'm living from that, then there's no problem.
Right.
Because I don't read charts. I don't know what the heck you did. I don't know what happened back then. But where are you today and who you are today? So because I was a metaphysician, I was actually perfect for the position.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any judgments on you.
Right.
I see beyond appearance. I know you more than just the addiction.
Right.
And so by doing that, that's why it's 13 freaking years later.
Right.
And I'm still doing this thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what happened. If you were to talk to any of those women, they'll tell you, I never ask them, what is your story? I never say, what is your drug of choice?
Right.
I say things like, okay, let's vision for your future. You know, let's write a thank you letter to sobriety. Let's, you know what I mean? I do things like that. How far you've come? How have you grown? And I consider when someone says yes to walking into a treatment center, and they'll say, well, the judge sent me, or my parents sent me, or my family sent me. And I'll go, no, they didn't. You sent you. And you're on a soul call, and your soul is saying to you, it's time to heal.
Yeah.
Well, the judge told me I had to come here. No, you could be on the street, or you could be in jail.
Right.
You had a choice.
Sure.
But you chose this. So to me, to walk into a treatment center is an act of self-love.
Right.
So love is there. So I'm going to deal with you from that place of love.
Right. That's a beautiful way to think about it and
Yeah.
put it and position it. And most addicts, when they come in, they're not feeling real good about themselves. You know.
Yeah. Well, I say things like, when was the last time you were told you're divine?
So, right.
When was the last time you were told you're whole? When was the last time you were told that you love yourself?
Yeah.
Right? This act is an act of self-love.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's been so long. Okay.
Yeah.
So that trust
Right.
allows me to be able to tap in and
Yeah.
really do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think the most important thing that, or not the most important thing, but the biggest thing people misunderstand about addicts that aren't maybe in our world, right?
Just stop.
Yeah.
Just stop it.
Right.
Don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I think the biggest misunderstanding is they don't understand the wiring in the brain and how it affects it, and that it is a dis-ease of mind.
Right.
Right? What I love and what I loved, about how we were lined up at Safe Harbor is that we address the totality of the individual. So it's spiritual, right? So the therapist, I would work on the spiritual part, and then the mental, they have a therapist, and then the physical is the case manager.
Yeah.
So I believe we're in the Trinity, that
Right.
we're working with the aspects, and then the emotional, which is in there. But I believe by addressing people in the whole, that it helps them. And I recommend to families, who are like, well, that's just your problem. Well, fruit, you were in their lives, so you got something to do with it.
Right.
I'm like, hey, Al-Anon, my friend, you know what I
Right.
mean? I don't deal with families much because I deal with the individual, but I always recommend, Al-Anon, because you can understand more about your loved one
Yeah.
when you do that, you know?
Yeah. I know for me, a lot of the rules and the regulations of religion that were, presented to me that I maybe agreed with or didn't agree with were a barrier for me to overcome having that connection with my higher power.
I love you
so,
saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my question is like, what do you think the biggest barrier for people in recovery? What have you seen for them being able to connect with their higher power?
So it's interesting you're saying that, because I go under it. And what I mean by that is, do you believe in a higher power? Well, I know there's something greater than myself. Okay.
Right.
If you were to name it, what would you name it? Well, I don't know. Higher power is a name. Oh, okay. Well, higher power or God or whatever they choose. Okay. Number one, you can't be disconnected from the same power that created the entire universe. What makes you so special, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you've never been disconnected. The work you're doing here is to remember who you really are in the eyes of this presence, right? And so I kind of pedal backwards to, okay, so let's imagine this. You've never been disconnected. It's been here all along. Your work is to bring your attention to it. As you focus on it, you will experience more of it. Every coincidence you've ever experienced, when things line up and you didn't do it, that is the activity of it. Like I go to those places with them where, oh, wait a minute. You know what? Okay, how many times have you fallen and gotten up? Oh, there's something greater, because if it was up to you, you'd still be down on the ground.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
just like walking with this individual through it all, and also looking at, when have you had miracles in your life?
Right.
Oh, well, when I overdosed and blah, blah, blah. What do you think that was? Like, but I think what helps me is, helps me to be with them, is that I don't care what name you call it. Except those who talk about a doorknob. Okay, please. That's the
Yeah,
most
right.
ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Yeah.
what was the creative power that helped the person create that doorknob? You
Right.
know what I mean? But, I think my simplicity and the way that I can describe it
Yeah.
supports individuals in. I have so many people who are like, when I came here, I did not even believe in a higher power, or
Yeah.
I was mad at a higher power. And when they're leaving, they're like, oh, wow, I do believe in something more.
Yeah.
And so that's been the work I've been able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I even had an atheist once who was like, I'm atheist, I don't believe in a higher power, blah, 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 blah. And then she was singing the spiritual songs when we would sing them.
Right. She enjoyed the song.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
hello,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So we had a talk the other day because, in our world, it's very rewarding, but also sometimes very sad. And, I'm sure you've dealt with this and I deal with this, and sometimes people don't make it.
Oh, yeah,
And,
that's the part.
yeah,
that part.
How do you deal with that?
Well, for me, with how I approach it, is again from my spiritual understanding. We don't believe in death. We believe that the physical body dies and that spiritual is eternal, that spiritual self is everlasting, right?
Right.
And then we put that with science, that energy can be transmuted, but it cannot be destroyed.
Right.
So we are energy, we are energetic beings. And so as I approach it from that space, I have a deeper awareness. And I believe people are on their own soul journey. So I can support you in becoming more spiritually conscious, and I can support you, and your therapist can support you. We can all support you. Yet, on a soul level, if it's time for you to leave, it's time for you to leave.
Right.
So, and then what will your leaving do? Well, it could literally change people for the greater good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't take it as, I have a story though, and if we have time, I'll tell you.
We have time, yeah.
But I do want to say it affects me, yet it doesn't affect me in a way of I should have done more, or I wish I could have, because I know I'm not their God, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I even have people write, so-and-so is not my God. I let God be my God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I want to say, so I'm going to give you the story. So there was
Let's
a
hear the story.
young lady, and I'm just going to use the name Susie.
Okay.
So someone literally dropped her off on our doorsteps,
Oh, wow.
which is like unheard of. And the individual said to us, if you all don't take this girl in, she's going to die. She must have been like 18 years old, right? So we took her in, and I sat with her for a few minutes before I left. And so the next morning I came back in, she wasn't there. And I was like, where's Susie? And they said, oh, Susie said she couldn't do this, so she left. And at 17, Susie had a son. So she's gone, done. And then 2 months later, we get a call at the treatment center. Oh, I'm trying to reach Reverend Arlene. Velvet gave me this number. And so I get on the phone, and the individual says, do you do memorials? And I said, I do. Why are you asking? And remember Susie? Yes, she overdosed and passed, right? So that was sad. So when I do a celebration of life is what I call them, and people are catching on to that name, but we've been using it forever. I call families and I talk to them. I want to know more about the person.
Right.
So I called families, and they all kept saying to me, she was so stubborn. She was so stubborn. She was so stubborn. So when her day finally came for me to do her service, there was like 300 to 400 people there.
Oh,
the
wow.
place was, all of Costa Mesa knew this girl.
Yeah.
The mother is late because we think she's out getting high. So finally I go, look, we're starting this thing. We ain't waiting for her. Right? So we start the service. And one of the things I said, I wish Susie had used her stubbornness for her sobriety. Right? She's gone. The mom finally comes in. She's a hot mess. It was just painful in that way. So yeah, it's painful. When people pass, it's painful.
Right.
You know? Let me just bring it around to one day I'm at the treatment center. I'm in a group. I'm doing a group. I look over. I see this woman. I'm like, wow, that woman looks familiar. I keep on doing what I do. No one told me. It was her mother had come to treatment. And now from what I hear, her mother is like, she's a sponsor.
Oh, wow.
She helps a lot of young people.
Yeah.
But, I have chills telling you this story. So that's the most painful part of my work is when I have to do a service. And I still know that they're on their journey. And I believe that life is eternal. So whatever their next pace is, my prayer is that they got whatever they needed here for their next journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why? Because it is painful when we lose people. But I do have a 100% belief that there's something beyond this. But why is it painful? Why do you think? Is it just the human condition why it's painful?
Yeah, it's the physicality.
We're gonna miss them?
We're going to miss the physical being. I think that's the human condition. We're not just, I believe we're spiritual, mental, physical, emotional beings. So, that's the human part. That's the physical self. That's the emotional self. And I think it's healthy to feel because it's the empathy, it's the compassion, it could be anger. There's phases of it all. I think it's natural for us to feel for someone. Yet the truth is, don't ever think that you're responsible for somebody else's life.
Right.
Because I'm not here,
Yeah.
to run your
Sure.
life. I'm here to remind you that you're needed
Yeah.
in this thing called life, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Which is a Ernest Holmes book, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's hard to do sometimes because we lose people and we're like, should I have called them? Should I have checked? Should I have?
That's the ego,
Yeah, it is.
to be honest with you.
It really is.
Really?
Yeah, it really is.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
really? You
Yeah.
were going to do all that?
Right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
We're not God.
We don't have that power.
We had a situation that happened night before last where one of our clients left the treatment center, went to one of these seedy hotels. Really young girl.
I wish we could close all of
And,
those seedy hotels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to
And-
name a name, but I won't.
Yeah,
It
well,
starts with an A.
yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, there's that one and the one that starts with a C and the one that starts. But anyway, our admissions director, who's my little sister, was talking to this girl, and she was in the room by herself doing fentanyl. And then all of
Wow.
a sudden went dark. And so my
Wow.
sister drove over there, stormed in the office of the hotel, and told the guy, "You better tell me what room she's in right now, and you better let me in because this girl's probably dead in there." And they Narcaned her. She walked in the hotel. She was
Wow.
gone, not breathing.
Wow.
Narcaned her 4 times.
Wow.
Paramedics came, Narcaned her a couple other times. She woke up. But talk about God having a hand in that, because, my sister hitting maybe
Right.
one more red light. Maybe you can't find her where she put her keys for 2 minutes. The girl would have been
well, how
gone.
about this? If she was really ready to go, she wouldn't have even been on that phone.
Yeah,
So on a soul level, she wasn't ready.
right.
So then everything lines up
Yeah.
for her
Yeah.
to live.
Yeah. Seconds and inches. Yeah. Yeah. And so, the
Yeah.
girl's alive and hopefully
Thank
she
goodness.
gets it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
then, last month we lost a former client that was just a beautiful soul and was doing really well and decided to go try
One
it
more
again.
time.
One more time.
I've heard so many of those one more times that I now
Mm-hmm.
talk about it. And I say things like, that brain will say to you, just one more time. And
Right.
remember, one will never be enough.
Right.
Right? And then you plant these seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have to let it go.
Yeah.
Right? Or else you would be in absolute misery.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we never know when something that we say to somebody is going to have an effect on them.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell the story. When I was 22, I first came into AA, and I went to a meeting, and I thought about going to another one, and I'm like, I don't know. And I went ahead and went, and a guy there remembered my name. Hey, Chris.
Wow.
And I don't even know who the guy was. I can't tell you who he was. But I remember, somebody remembered my name.
Wow.
It made me feel good
Something
about
so simple.
going the next night, something so simple, like probably changed the whole course of my whole entire
Wow.
life.
How long has it been for you?
So I've been sober 17 years. I originally
Wow.
got sober when I was 22 and stayed sober till I was 30. I met Velvet when I was 22. That was 1993. I met all those guys, and they had been around. They were kind of the young people that were there before
Wow.
us, and we were
Wow.
young people. And then I stayed sober till I was 30 and tried one more time, and that lasted 4 years. And
Wow.
yeah, it wasn't pretty. And then came back again at 34 and met my wife pretty quick after that, who had gone through Safe Harbor. I told you that story.
Yes.
And, so we've been married 15 years and
It's
have
beautiful.
beautiful lives, because of
Because it's
sobriety.
here for you.
Right.
It's here for you.
Right.
And that's why it's important to tell your story, and so other people can see you.
Yeah.
I have a saying, as you heal, others will heal. And it doesn't mean you have to go telling people, you need to do this. Live it, and people are going to want it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot of things, though. Some things I didn't want to know. I'm like, oh, this is too much.
So tell me one thing you learned that you didn't want to know. What
Well, I think I put them out of my mind.
Yeah.
Just, Mary.
Oh yeah, Mary's
Yeah.
very descriptive and will
I'm
say
like, Mary.
Mary doesn't
I
have a
can't take
filter.
it. I can't take it anymore. Just enough,
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah.
There's just, okay, I'm going to tell you an understanding that I got to.
Okay.
And I said this to a woman, and she cried when I told her this. And I said, I believe that people who are dealing with addiction are really sensitive, number one. You're more sensitive than the average person,
Yeah.
right? But that sensitivity is actually your gift.
Right.
But what we tend to do, and I say we because it could be me, right? What we tend to do is we allow that sensitivity to weigh us down rather than understanding it's your superpower.
Sure.
Because with this sensitivity, there is this thing called empathy. There's this thing, you understand people differently and better. You know, there's so many
Right.
gifts to, right, this sensitivity. And I consider you all angels that just forgot your mission.
Right.
And I told a mother this, whose daughter had died from an overdose, and I said, you know what? She goes, I thought I was the only one who thought that. And it's like, you are here you're here because you're needed to help humanity heal. You got sidetracked. Now we need you back on track because we need you. And especially now with all the separation, I believe the separation, racism, sexism, ageism, all these isms are happening because we think ourselves separate from God.
Right.
We think ourselves separate from this higher power. So if I'm separate from the creator of the universe, then of course I can be separate from you.
Yeah.
But when we recognize our oneness, that's when we're going to heal. And we need you. We need all of you to be sober, healthy, so that you can support humanity with healing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And help the other alcoholic and addict, because I'll tell you, as far as my addiction went, I wasn't going to listen to anybody that didn't get it because of what you said. Like, just stop.
Yeah.
Why can't you just get it under control? Well, you don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's my solution, not my problem, because I'm so sensitive, right? Like you talked about, and I have this feeling of not fitting in and not being, you know, I need this to feel okay. And, you know, it's one of those things that once I listen to someone like that
Right.
and start on my road, then I can start listening to other people and I can start listening to other points of view.
Well,
So,
it's very interesting because that was the question mark in my head. How am I going to do this?
right.
Yet the difference with me was that I knew I was there for the divine.
Right.
And so the clients feel it. They know I'm not judging them. They're knowing I'm not critical. They know that I don't think you're just an addict.
Yeah.
And because of that, they feel safe with me.
Yeah.
And like today, a individual broke a smile today. We have men now, men and women. And no one had seen him smile since the whole time he got there. So we did a session today. And by the time I was done with him, he was like, you really got me.
Yeah.
And then he cracked a smile. And I was like,
You got him to smile. Isn't that
That-
great when you get those tough guys to smile?
He wasn't
Yeah.
being tough.
Yeah.
He was being, you remember the Flintstones?
Yeah.
The one that walked around wowsy wow wow
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
with the cloud over
Yeah,
his head. He
yeah.
was like that.
Yeah.
Where the other clients were like, what?
Right.
And he cracked a smile and I was like, okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
That's
that sweet
neat.
moment.
That's neat.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing about this job? Like working with addicts? What really
What is
brings
my
you
favorite thing? My favorite part is one-on-ones.
joy? Really?
Because you could literally sit before me and I can see you open, like a flower opening.
Yeah.
I've seen that. And I love reminding people of who they really are. Because I believe on a soul level, we know who we are, but we've covered it up. Trauma, pain, hurt, anger, resentments,
Yeah.
which is non-forgiveness.
Yeah.
And we cover it up. But I love seeing someone take down the barriers. That's what I love. And I love reminding people that you're worthy of a good life,
Yeah.
that you're enough,
Right.
that you were born enough and you will always be enough. Like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
it's-
love seeing people when they get it.
Right.
When you like, oh,
Yeah. It's funny, you have like moments, and like I told you about my moment the other day after interviewing Velvet's, like all these acts of kindness lead to things happening in your life, or, you know, just driving down the road, and sometimes having moments of just gratitude and understanding, like, wow,
Yeah.
this happened, and, you know, I get to be here.
Well,
So, you know,
I call them coincidences.
Yeah.
When everything coincides, when everything, people go, oh, that's just a coincidence. No, this is a coincidence. Everything coincides, lining up side by side, working it out. But this is the key. you didn't make it happen. You can't even plan this out.
No.
And this is the proof that the universe is conspiring for your good,
Right.
that there's a God that is for you, not against you, that life is for you. It's moments like that. And when you are out of your mind, you can't see it,
Right.
but it's still happening.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I
It's
could just
wild.
talk all night
You know,
about that.
and it's like, I was like thinking about when you were talking about when you were 13, I remember being a little kid and just knowing there's God. And then as experiences happened, like
Right.
maybe no, and it's all
And
that
you
stuff
just
that
cover it
stacks
up.
on top
Yep.
of each other. And then when you get sober, you start peeling that away. And then it
It's
just
like,
happens.
wait a
and
minute.
you get a feeling. And then, yeah.
I've never felt this before,
Yeah.
or I can't believe I'm thinking this way,
Right.
or I've never had this thought before.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I do a meditation on my Facebook page on Monday nights,
Tell me about
and
that.
it started during the marches that were happening, and I just do it. You know what I mean? And so it started there, and then the whole shutdown, the lockdown. I said, okay, what can I do to help people that are coming in from these marches and to bring them peace? And
Yeah.
so I decided I'm going to do one peace meditation on my Facebook page.
Right.
And it was lovely. But the problem was while I was doing it, I heard, oh, you're going to do one next Monday night. And I was
Yeah.
like, really?
Yeah.
Now, 3 years later, I'm still doing it. I'm going to put it on. It's on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
It's just a spot for people to land
Love
on
it.
a Monday night and
What time is that?
get some. It's at 7 p.m.
Awesome.
Pacific time on my
Awesome.
page with
Yeah.
my name.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you just go live on Facebook. And
I
do
just
it
go
there?
live. It goes to Facebook. It goes to YouTube.
Right.
And soon I'm going to send it over to Instagram.
Yeah.
It's just a moment because Sunday starts your week and Monday can be rough. And
Yeah.
so you just get to chill and
Yeah.
pray, meditate, do some readings and
Right.
stuff like that.
That's
know.
interesting. You talk about you did that during the marches, right? And it's like now we've had COVID, and it's just all these things in our world that are just
But there's a lot of
crazy
good
right
in
now.
our world.
And there is a lot of good.
But we don't hear about it,
right.
right?
So let's talk about. Tell me
So
about.
the greater good
yeah.
has to be from you.
Right.
If you think the world is, not that you're saying that, but if we think the world is so bad, then what's your part? Right? So what is the greater good? So for me, the greater good is being on that page on Monday nights. So
Yeah.
what are you going to do? And what
Yeah.
are you going to do? What are you do? Because the news is the olds. It doesn't really tell us. That's what my teacher, Reverend Michael, said. This isn't the news.
Right.
This is the olds. They're just telling you something. That
Right.
stuff happened a while ago.
Yeah.
So what are you creating today, right?
Yeah.
How am I going to stand today? And people are helping people all day long, but we don't hear about that.
You never hear about it.
Right.
You never hear a positive thing. Maybe like a one little feel good story
Right,
here
right.
or there. Right.
But what's happening in the rooms of AA, right?
Yeah.
What's happening at treatment centers that are authentic treatment centers?
Yeah.
Right? People are healing, people are changing.
Right.
And you don't hear much about that, but somewhere within us, we have to know to our bones that there's a greater good happening.
So there is negative stuff going on, but your position and what you want to focus on is like, hey, look at all the good stuff that's going on in the world and be part of the change.
Exactly.
And just that other stuff is over. Yeah. It's just
Right?
happening.
Right?
Whatever. Right.
I remember someone said to me, one of the guys said to me, I know you're always looking for the greater good. I know I need to put a positive spin.
yeah.
And right in front of me, he switched his words up. Okay,
Right.
okay. Because we can stand around and talk all day about what's wrong, but what about standing and talking about what's right?
Yeah.
What's right? Oh my God, I woke up today. I tell people, a miracle happened today. They're like, what?
Yeah.
You woke up. Some people didn't wake up this morning.
Yeah.
Just starting to look at the simple things. Oh, you've got hot and cold running water, roof over your. Just the simple things we take for granted. They do gratitude lists every day. They set intentions in the mornings.
Yeah.
And I have programs outside of here that I created where people, it's a little more intense out in the world because they changed to vegan eating and
Yeah.
they do like 47 days of fasting and meditating with me. But on a whole, just being grateful every day, appreciation can shift your mind,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's neat you say that. I was like just thinking about, because when I asked you that question, I was just like kind of reflecting on COVID and just all the stuff that we went through as a society. And, my world is definitely in the sober world, but it's also the youth in our community and being around youth sports and
Right.
high school football. And that all just shut down, and it was crazy, and really had a rough effect on a lot of the young people.
Yeah.
And the cool thing, like when you were thinking that, I was like thinking about all the stuff that we did during COVID to kind of get through that. Like the guy that owns this podcast studio created a secret high school football league out in the middle of Riverside and got the kids out playing, and like,
which is where they needed to be.
Yeah, which is where they needed to
some
be.
Sunshine.
Yeah.
But who am I? What were you saying?
Exactly. And so we were doing all this stuff, and there was secret restaurants open down in Newport Beach that we'd go to, and like, but there was so much good going on, you know, and like, it was tough for a lot of people, but a lot of good did come out of that, you know.
A lot of people started new things during that time. Again, I started my little Facebook meditation Monday nights, like. You know,
a lot of the Zoom stuff and being able to communicate online, that didn't really happen. I mean, you had it, but you didn't use it.
Yeah, my whole ministry went online.
Right.
My teen program went online. Then I started getting teens from Canada, from Barbados. I started getting teens from other countries that were on my line on Sunday mornings.
So let's talk about your teen program a little bit. What is that? Because I want to get that out there, and you'll be able to use this to get that out there. Tell me about your teen program.
Okay, so Agape International Spiritual Center is my community, and actually Velvet used to attend that community as well. And I'm the director of the teen program and the young adults program. So the teens are 14 through 19, young adults 20 to 35. Like this Friday night, I meet with the young adults online.
Okay.
We meet like twice a month, and then every Sunday I meet with the teens, right? And it's basically.
What time is that on Sunday?
It's 11:15 till 1:15.
Okay.
Pacific time, and so we do different things. We have game Sundays. We do spiritual lessons. This Sunday they actually created a prayer for the new year.
Okay.
I mean, it was, they're amazing.
That's neat.
And so it's really supporting young people in becoming spiritually conscious in such a way that thoughts are things that they're creating from their thoughts and their feelings, and then to translate that to the world. Like you're in school. I have teenagers that are ending relationships. Like, you're unhealthy for me. I can't be around you.
Yeah.
Teenagers are doing this. I have teenagers who are, using affirmations every day. So it's just supporting them and understanding that they can deal with life in a different way.
Yeah.
And that they don't have to succumb to a lot of the things that are on social media that are unhealthy.
Yeah.
And that they have power.
Right.
A lot of the decisions I made that I'm living in today are from when I was a teenager. Even littering. I will not litter.
Right.
I made a decision that I won't litter as a teenager.
I did too. Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah.
So with this program is showing them to create these ways of being that can carry them into the world.
Yeah.
And it's to be in the world, but not of the world.
Yeah.
You're not stuck with other people's ideas of you.
Yeah.
You get to be who you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's
neat.
kind of.
And these teenagers are from all over the country, or?
Well, they've been from all over the country. We're still Zooming in, but now we're going to start Zooming, and January we're going to physically be meeting in the building again.
Where's the building?
It's in, where is that? It's on the corner of La Cienega. So it's in LA.
It's in LA.
La Cienega and Wilshire.
Okay.
It's called the Saban Theater.
Okay.
And we meet there on Sundays.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I've been doing it. We were in another location. We were Sundays and Wednesdays. And I've been doing that, like I said, 22 years. I'm like, when am I going to stop doing this? But it keeps happening.
Yeah.
And then the young adults meet twice a month.
That's neat.
Yeah. So.
Okay. And a young adult's up to 35 now. Okay.
I mean,
that doesn't make me feel so old anymore.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I was so immature. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
35.
I'm 51.
You're not grown till you're 40.
I don't know, maybe 60. I'm not grown yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the Kabbalah says you're not an adult till you're 40 years old.
Oh, really?
So there you go.
There you go. So I've been an adult for not very long.
I've only been an adult 18 years.
Yeah. There
I can't believe I'm 58. Ugh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it flies.
It's just a number.
It flies.
So yes.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap up, I want to, I ask this question to everybody, but I want to know what your message would be to that person that's struggling in addiction or mental health, and what would you tell that person, right, that's out there just seeking something? What would you tell that person? What would your advice be to them?
It's interesting. It so varies depending on the individual, but I really go into life is for you, and I have them look for When have you thought it was the end, but you stood again? When did you think it was over, but you stood again? You know, like, what keeps bringing you back? And I remind them that on a soul level, you're calling yourself back because you're needed. So it's their necessity that life needs you, and that there is a power and a presence that is greater than yourself, and it's for you, and it will never leave you. And so when they start thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought I was going to die over here, but I'm still here. I thought this was over, but I'm still here. And start understanding that there's an inner calling, that you're being called. You will not leave here until you are truly done with what you came here to do.
Right.
And you keep coming back, dude, lady, whoever, they, them, because your soul keeps calling you back.
Yeah.
And so let's acquiesce to the soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I
This has
appreciate
been
it.
a lot of fun, right? It's
I
good
can't
to get to
believe-
know you.
I can't believe I've been sitting here this long. I could just talk to you forever.
We could talk forever. I know.
And
It's
don't put me
awesome.
on a chair that moves, because I'm surprised I didn't twirl around in this chair. So
You did great. You want to do a twirl? Go ahead.
I'm good.
So,
I'm good.
all
I don't want to.
All right.
I'm going to be a good girl.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you so
This
much.
was great.
All right.